Okay guys, so today I'm going to show you how to dismount and remount a tire on this Hofmann Monty 1270. This is a pretty typical rim clamp machine. Most machines are going to be very similar to this. There are a few that are a little bit different, like a Hunter with a tubeless clamp, but most of the machines you see are going to have this style rim clamp. So we're going to walk through the process here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove our valve cap. I'm going to place my valve cap up here in this pedestal. There's sort of a depression. Most machines will have bins. This particular one doesn't, but there is a depression up there that works pretty well for this. Now I'm going to take my valve core tool. I'm going to lock it into the valve core on the Schrader valve. I'm going to unscrew that. I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure on this so it doesn't come flying out. Grab the hold, pinch it between your thumb and your finger. Set the valve core and the valve core tool up on top of the machine. Now we're going to let the tire air down. We want to make sure we let this air completely down. We don't want to try to break the beads until the air is completely out of the tire. This is a big tire, so it's going to take a minute. So when we break this bead, generally I tell my students to break 90 degrees from the valve stem. Some people will tell you to break 180 degrees so you don't damage the tire pressure monitor. I like to tell my students 90 degrees away because some vehicles, Fords in particular, a lot of them will run a tire pressure monitor in the drop center 180 degrees from the valve stem. If I break 90 degrees from the valve stem, I'm safe. So we're going to go ahead and roll this wheel in. I'm going to pull my bead shovel out. Roll this guy in until that valve stem is about 90 degrees from the shovel. Go ahead and break our bead. If it doesn't break all the way around, you can spin it and break again. This particular one did. So now we'll spin it around and we'll break our back bead again. I want to stay about 90 degrees from that valve stem. You'll see that bead didn't break all the way. We'll put a little bit of lube in there. This will aid in breaking the beads. Again, we'll rotate this a little bit. Break it again. We have to do this a couple of times until we get this bead broken completely all the way around. Again, pay attention to where that valve stem is so you don't damage that tire pressure monitor. There she goes. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this interfering wheel weight. This is easier to do once the beads are broken. Now we want to thoroughly lubricate both beads. Now we're going to place our wheel and tire assembly up on the table. Once I've got it on the table, I'm going to step on the clamp pedal, clamp the wheel onto the machine. Make sure it bead's broken all the way around. Got a little more lube. Now, when we position the wheel on the machine, I want this valve stem underneath this arm. So I'm going to bring my mount-demount head in. Bring this down until it's against the wheel. I'm going to adjust this up so that it just touches, then I'm going to back it off just a hair. We want about 1/8 of an inch maybe in between the wheel and the mount-demount head. I'm going to lock it in place using this lever. That's going to pick it up just a tiny bit so that the face of this head is not resting against the wheel. Again, I'm going to rotate my valve stem until it's directly underneath my arm. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to get our bead lever. Now our bead lever has 2 ends. On this particular machine, this one's kind of funky. It's got this skateboard looking end and then it's got this weird hooked end. Most bead levers will just have a skateboard looking end and a hook. This one's kind of funky. We're going to use this skateboard looking end We're going to place it in between the demount head and the top bead. I'm going to place my right hand on the bead lever, left hand on the sidewall of the tire. I'm going to press the sidewall of the tire down. I'm going to place this top bead into the drop center of the wheel. I'm then going to bring my bead lever up. I want to make sure that I don't touch the face of the wheel with the bead lever. Notice that I don't have this bead lever jabbing into the sidewall of the tire. If we see this, we can damage the inner liner of the tire. Remember, the inner liner is the only portion of this that holds air. So we want to make sure that we're out far enough so we're not going to damage that inner liner. Now what we're going to do, left hand on bead lever, right hand under tire. I'm going to pick up gently on the tire. I'm going to step on the rotate pedal, and I'm going to spin this top bead off. Now we're going to do the same thing on our top, or on our bottom bead. I'm going to bring my valve stem under, directly under the arm here. That way we're not going to hit the tire pressure monitor with either the bead or the bead lever. I'm going to place the bead lever under the bottom bead. Left hand on bead lever. Notice I've got it sort of upside down. You'll see why in a second. Right hand under tire. I'm going to pick up with my right hand and pull the bead lever down with my other. This can be a little finicky, especially on a tire this big. There she goes. So, again, press the bead lever down with your left hand, pick up with your right hand, step on the rotate pedal. Now our tire's dismounted. We can remove it from the wheel. Okay, so here's our wheel. You can see our tire pressure monitor right here. Again, we need to be careful with that tire pressure monitor. We don't want to damage that or break it. They're very easy to break. You can very clearly see our drop center here. That drop center is important. When we're remounting, we're going to have to make sure that our bead stays in that drop center all the time. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to clean a little bit of this excess lube off I've got here. If I was putting a new tire on, I would lubricate the new wheel quite often. I'll also lubricate the wheel. You can see that this one's fairly well lubed. However, I'm going to put a little bit of lube in this drop center. That will aid in remounting. We don't want to glom it on here. I don't want to drown that tire pressure monitor in lubricant. So if I've got excessive lube anywhere, I'm just going to go ahead and wipe a little bit of it off. Now, when we go back on, I want to make sure our tire's lubricated. I can take my tire, place it up on the wheel. Now I'm going to back this wheel up until that valve stem is about 180 degrees from my mount arm. Bring this back in, lock it down. So now we're 180 degrees from the arm. We're going to take our bottom bead, we're going to place it over this portion of the mount demount head, under this portion, so over, under. We're going to spin the tire and you're going to kind of feel the bead lock onto the wheel. Again, I want to make sure that my bead is not hitting that tire pressure monitor. And then I'm very carefully going to spin this tire on. Again, I want to make sure that when this tire comes down, it doesn't hit that tire pressure monitor. If we do this correctly, that valve stem won't move, okay? Now I'm going to back it up again. And we're going to do the same thing with our top bead. Again, we're going to go over and under. We're going to apply pressure to our sidewall. We want to place our bead in the drop center. I'm going to twist this until it locks on. And now while applying pressure, notice again, my bead is not hitting my tire pressure monitor. While pressing down on the sidewall, we're simply going to spin this top bead on. And again, when we get close, I'm going to go real easy and real slow so that we don't pop that tire pressure monitor with the bead. All right. Now we can get our arm out of the way. We can go ahead and seat our beads. Get our filler hose, attach it to my valve stem, make sure it's securely fastened. I've got a two-stage pedal over here. First stage fills through the hose. Second stage is an air blast from the bottom. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way down on that pedal and then come halfway up. So, we go all the way down, and then halfway up. That fills the tire with air. Now you can see our beads are seated. This particular vehicle, the tire pressure is supposed to be 32 psi. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my pressure up. Again, you can only read this gauge with your foot off the pedal. This will take a minute because, again, this is a large wheel and tire assembly. Now, while this is airing up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my valve core tool and my valve core. I'm going to place the valve core in the valve core tool and pinch it between my thumb and my forefinger so that it's ready to go back in the valve stem. And again, you can see this is going to take a while. This is a big tire. So I'm going to get it about where I want it. I'm going to remove the hose and I'm going to drop the valve core in all in one motion. So remove, drop valve core in. We're going to screw that Schrader valve in until it's snug. Some of these need to be torqued. This particular one does not. Now I'm going to finish setting my pressures. Hook our filler hose back up. Again, make sure it's securely fastened. We are at about 30 psi. And if you overshoot, this button right here will release pressure from the tire. We're at about 32 right there. Disconnect my air hose, attach it to the machine again, replace your valve cap. Make sure you're using the correct type of cap for the vehicle. This particular one is actually not correct for this tire pressure monitor, but that's okay. Unclamp our wheel and tire assembly and return it to the vehicle. So that's the job, guys. Have a good one.